now we're going to dive into an area that's important to all of us, every single one of us, in both our professional lives and our home life. And as you know, they are related, because if it's not all good in the home life, usually the professional life suffers, and vice versa. And so what is so important is relationships, right? And so you saw my emails, so there's no secret of what we're going to be talking about today. But relationships can be personal relationships, friendships, partnerships. You got from spouse to, like dating. You've got business relationships, relationships that are contractually bound, relationships that are not contractually bound, joint venture agreements and partnerships, which, that we do with a lot of folks in our industry and specifically in our space. But relationships are key, and really understanding, one, how to develop them, I think, is very important, but two, how to invest in them, and how to use certain tools to help you be better at relationships, right? Who couldn't use that? So anyway, I am super stoked about the topic. I'm a happily married man. I met my beautiful wife in Utah in a little town on a mountain, and she was running the lodge up there. And it took me about 2 years to slow cook, because I didn't want to be that guy hitting on her. Maybe I learned some relationship tips in my past, because I did exactly what I needed to do to end up with the woman of my dreams. And why else relationship is important, pertinent to my wife, is from day one, even though we had an office in Newport Beach right there on the water, some of you have come to our masterminds there. In fact, my guest, Dan, has been to a mastermind there in Newport Beach. Well, I had the opportunity to work out of my home since many of you have known me, since Go Mobile started. Yes, we had an office, and yes, I'd pop in every once in a while to cheerlead a little bit. But hey, the Go Mobile way is doing business your way, wherever you want, as long as you got internet, we'll work, right? We're good. And so my girlfriend then now will be 8th year anniversary in December. And that's a knockout story that you two are going to want to hear, especially. I mean, you're going to love that. I'm talking to my guest here. But here's the thing. It's a knockout story because 8 years of marriage and 4 years prior, we have both worked in the same home together and lived together. So we were together 24/7. Like, no kidding. So relationship is super, super important. Now, many of you have witnessed or experienced it for the first time in your lives with lockdowns. Many of you experienced like 2 months of, and ask yourself, did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Reflect on that kind of stuff. Did you show up? And, as you hear our guest tonight, and as we talk about this discussion, you're going to be reflecting on the times that you have away, the times that you have together. What could you have done differently? I don't know. It's not really to point the picture and judge and all that stuff. But hey, we can all improve at relationships, and we don't know where and how unless we take a look at it. This guy does yoga. He can meditate for 10 hours, right?
More like 10 minutes.
Probably will
10,
be
15,
my guru.
20 minutes.
In the next 10 years, he probably will end up being my guru. I don't know. I have a feeling.
Thanks, man. Well, I mean, honestly, first off, thanks for everything that you just said. And, it's funny, I was just having this conversation with somebody I haven't spoken to in over 15 years. We both came up in the Tony Robbins community. So we kind of met through that. I was part of the Platinum Partnership where I travel around the world with Tony, his mentors, other people in the group. And we got to do some really cool stuff, hang out in Fiji with him, have lunch, breakfast, and dinner with him. And it's funny that it's turned full circle because I started out in this game, in the internet marketing game, actually promoting my books. I have 2 books. I have one in the background, Rockstar, 45 Lessons to Be a Rockstar in Your Life and Make the World Your Stage. And then, this one, How to Attract the Person in Your Dreams and Keep Them, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Yep. And these are my passions. These are the things that I just wanted to really get out there and, you know, kind of give back with, because when I was in the real estate and the mortgage business, and even prior to that, the things that I was doing as a personal trainer, people would always come to me with relationship advice or life advice. And, you know, I didn't even have the tools available to me at the time that I do now, and the knowledge from learning from my mentors that I could actually help them the same way, but they were still coming to me and I was still helping them. So I was always just driven to kind of helping people. You know, back when I started this was like 2006, 2007. And as we all can remember those days, and we some of you might choose to forget, I try to sometimes, you know, we had a really big economic downturn, and, you know, people lost businesses, all kinds of things were happening for several years. So people weren't really willing to pay for relationship advice because they were like, I'm broke. You know, I have no money. My business is gone. My relationship's in the crapper. You know, I need to make money first. And they were like, very fear-based, and myself included. I didn't know what I was going to do next because I left the mortgage and real estate business, and I had these books that I wanted to get out there, and this information and these seminars and these trainings. And, you know, in 2007, we didn't have paid traffic like we do today. We didn't have Facebook, ads and the things that we could put out. We didn't have YouTube ads the same way. We didn't have any of that stuff available to us. So I was doing live events. And I was making a little bit of money here and there, but people kept going back to, okay, I need help with this marketing stuff myself. I see that you have these books, you have done this stuff yourself. How do I do this for my own business? And I'm like, I don't know. I had to figure it out myself. I mean, I've done it for myself, but I don't know who you could go to. You know, nobody was actually offering as a service. So then people said, hey, can I just pay you money to do it for me? And then that's how I got started in, doing the marketing stuff. And then I met Ben, who also named his company Rockstar. We both were rock stars separately. And we both taught different parts of business. He was doing a Google, it was actually Maps. So he was doing Google Maps stuff back then. And I was doing the SEO stuff, organic search engine stuff. And we just kind of connected and decided to partner up, and it became two rock stars. Mm-hmm. And that's how that started. But it's funny because we're going full circle back now to the stuff that really drives me, which is being a rock star in your life and making the world your stage, which is everything from, your family to parenting, to relationships, to dating, to health, to yoga, meditation, working out, exercise. I mean, it's all of it. And I have expertise in all of these fields, which is just kind of mind blowing. Like how do I figure out a lot of this stuff? Like, it's just crazy. I'm just driven to learn.
Yeah.
And my wife, Siri Shakti, is the same way.
Yeah.
And
that's, that is really where the passion comes from. It's because, we've gone through, we've been married 20 years, together for 21 years. And, a relationship, you go through ebbs and flows. There's no such thing as perfection, right? We go through different experiences. And through these experiences, we have learned so much information. And we are super passionate about teaching people because we know what it's like to go through challenges and then to come out on the other side and have this wisdom and have this new know-how to bring your relationship to the next level. And that's what we all want. If you're someone that's single and you're looking for a relationship, we all deserve to be happy and to be with a companion and share our life with another person. And if we're in a marriage or if we're dating, we all deserve to have those tools to be able to maneuver through whatever life is going to give us. Because like I said, right, inevitably, you're going to go through times where things are going smooth and wonderful and you're like, oh my gosh, the sun's out, it's great. But then you're going to go through times where it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm like walking through the mud with you. And how are you going to get through that? And so, that's really where this passion comes from. And also, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, because I know that you invited my husband. And when he said to me he was going to talk to everyone about relationships, I was like, I want to join you, because I know that together we could actually share two different perspectives. And I feel like that would be really valuable.
Yeah. First I said no, but then she made me sleep on the couch. So I was like, all right, fine.
My
neck hurts.
over. Leanne's on here. Derek's on here. We were all over it. Love the idea. And this gave me an opportunity to finally get to meet you after all these years. I see all the Facebook stuff because I follow up on what you guys are doing with Facebook on Facebook. But so nice to meet you. And
You too.
20 years married, 21 years together, 20 years married. You both look 25. It doesn't even seem possible.
You can say that all the time. That's okay.
I mean, I'll give you 30, maybe. Awesome.
Yeah, we got married at 4. That's why.
Yeah.
You definitely. So how old were you when you got married? Now that, yeah.
I was 18.
Okay.
He was older.
I was 20 something. I don't remember.
He was like, what, 25, I think?
Something like that. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. But yeah, my mom, but you know what? Okay, my dad was a different story, but my mom was super cool about it. Like, we could all see the amazing heart within this man and like, love him.
Mom and dad approved from day one, huh? I think that's hard to believe. I know this right.
No,
Dad.
no,
Not dad.
no, not dad. Oh, no.
No. Her dad was actually, he bodybuilded, and the first thing that came out of his mouth when she's like, oh, he's a trainer at the gym, and then he goes, he's not bigger than me, and she's like, yeah, he is actually. And I was like, yeah. So he didn't like me instantly. He's like, what? He can't be bigger than me.
Yeah.
He's 260 pounds in those days. So
Yeah.
That's
But I was a very mature 18-year-old, I was like,
So now you have this family. You're living out in Orange County, California. So if the life is great, I know you both work out of your home.
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to comment because you say like, you've worked with your, like around your, like at home and your wife works at home. We have the same setup. And I think that, like not only do I stay home and homeschool the kids, but like I was teaching yoga out of our house. We've always been a really tight-knit family. And, I think that when you're around each other that much, it actually speeds up your learning of relationships as well, because you have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only time it gets testy around here is August and September when it's hot.
Nice.
We're moving into paradise, though. We're moving into the good weather. So things are,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
no, in all seriousness, let's be real. It's not all like, we're not all whistling around Dixie songs, woo, we're just happy every day. It's,
Right.
It's how we handle ourselves when we're frustrated or when we're in a disagreement, right? I think that's what's important, at least for us. And that's what I look back and go, I do after game huddles. How could I have done that differently? Yeah, I'll document that for next time. And that's just me talking to myself, thinking like, did I show up right or wrong in that scenario? And you know what? Like she's got one on me. I'll give you one as an example. She's got one on me, like, because we've had the various boys living with us over the years, and a couple of them working for us over the years. And if something's missing, it's always one of them. And so I'm real quick to just go ahead and blame them. And then of course it'll be found and it was somewhere I put it. And of course I become the poster child of it. And so now what that trained me, because I was wrong a couple times, is okay, if I'm going to do it, I can do it differently. I can do it almost like, I know this is kind of manipulating, but I can do it more fun and jokingly instead of attacking or confrontational. And you know what? The answer is going to be, no, actually I didn't. And maybe it'll be a helpful answer to me finding it. And so, it's just, it's trial and error, but you're right. I have to say, speeding up the process when you're around 24/7, there's absolutely no way not to, or you don't want. And
exactly. Well, we all get to grow and learn from each other, which is great. So you become more evolved. We call it conscious parenting.
Yeah.
You get to grow, and people that meet our kids, they go, whoa, your kids are really cool. Like, they're just so outgoing. And we're like, yeah, they're homeschooled. And they're like, what? You're homeschooled? Like, how did they socialize? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we socialize with them. We have friends that are like-minded that we connect with, and it's really awesome. And like, like you just said, I mean, we get to grow together and learn from each other, and every day is a learning experience. And it is awesome. And yeah, there's days that are challenging. And, before we even started, we had a little thing going on between me and her, where she was like setting something up, and she's like, oh, I was trying to do it to be nice. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't like it. It's like, why are you being mean? And I'm like, I'm not being mean. I just don't like it. It
was really perfect, because we had like a little argument before this, and I'm like, and then right after it was finished, I'm like, that was meant to be, because we're going to talk to everyone about relationships, and this is going to get us on target for exactly the message that we need to get across. Like,
we'll get to that part too. Do you want us to start with dating, or?
You know what? I would springboard right off this argument, man. Let's go right from the heat in the kitchen.
Okay.
Oh, go there, huh? Start in reverse. Talk about that. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, the long story short is that we all carry, I don't really like to call it emotional baggage.
Right.
It's more like a junk drawer, right? It's all this crap. Everybody pretty much has a junk drawer in their house, probably. I've never met anybody that doesn't. And it's like where you just stuff all your crap through the years. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, rubber bands, they go here. Oh yeah. Like, oh, there's an extra lighter. I don't even know whose lighter this is. I don't smoke or anything. Like, oh, it goes, I'm just going to put it there. I got to put incense there. I'm going to put a phone charger there. I'm going to put
golf tees. I'm famous for golf tees showing up all over the place in weird little places like that.
Oh, wow. So golf tees. Yeah. Yeah. Golf tees. I mean, all kinds of stuff just ends up there. I think we have like a clay hand thing that somebody made out of clay, like a hand. I don't know.
Bodie.
Yeah. That ended up in there somehow. So there's all these things that just end up in your emotional junk drawer that you just have to do some spring cleaning, and you just have to be aware that you're going to carry on some stuff from the past. But when you're with a partner in a relationship, no matter how long it is, it's not fair to kind of, make something feel like it's something that they're doing, like, oh, well, they did this. And because in my past, and this is all unconscious things that are happening, or the tone they used, or the thing they said, it's very familiar to me, how my dad spoke to me, how my teacher spoke to me, or my mom or grandma or granddad, or my ex-boyfriend or ex-husband or ex-wife, or whoever it is in your past that might have, been emotionally traumatizing to you. You can't bring that over into the next relationship. And if it does happen, it's exactly what you just said. It's understanding to recognize when it happens as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And if it takes a couple hours, if it takes a couple days, if it takes a couple weeks, a couple months for you to realize that, then reel that back, remember that, and then practice that to be faster in the future. So if it happens again in the future, you can get to that a lot quicker. So you can actually resolve that a lot quicker, and having an open dialogue without the emotional triggers. Like we have the conversation where I'm like, look, here's what happened. Here's what I saw. And then she's like, here's what I saw. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter, I guess. Let's just agree that, you did something, your intent. Again, I always look at intent. This is something we'll talk about later too, if you want more, but I always, my quick shortcut to the end of it, to the end of everything, is if you really layer back every single thing, no matter how she says something, what she says, what action she takes, actions do not speak louder than words. I'm sorry, they don't. Whatever her intent is, that's what it comes down to. What was her intent? Was her intent to really make me feel like shit? Was her intent really to just be mean to me, to kind of like throw a wrench in my day and hope that I have a horrible day? Well, no, her intent's not going to be that, because if it was, why would we even be together if that's what her intent was? And then we wouldn't be together. So by me trusting her intent at all times, 100% of the time, I'm able to just go shortcut all the way around, be like, I'm not mad at you. Or I am mad at you, but it's okay because I love you and we're okay. Just let me be mad at you for a little while, not from your intent, just from what happened. I'm mad.
And, I love the analogy of we all come into relationships, obviously, with our own past and experiences. And I like what you said, like, I don't like to relate it to, like, people will always say like baggage. I think that's a very negative way of expressing it. I think it's just past experiences that and some of them could be traumatic or be very challenging experiences. And then here you come into this relationship and you go through different experiences where you're sometimes one person is in need of support and the other person is the supporter. And for those of you that are either dating or in marriage right now, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because you switch roles. And you think about it, it happens by design. I mean, really it does, because as you guys are changing roles between either being the supporter or the one that needs support, it is not only helping each other to grow, but it's also like, for instance, he was needing to be my supporter in that moment because I was, whatever, some things from my past with my dad were coming up. And so he was supporting me, but that's also making him stronger. It's making him, he's learning lessons from that experience as well. And, I think that if we can relate to our relationships in this way, when these challenges do come up, it gives us a different level of like understanding and clarity that instead of taking all these things personal, we can understand that each of us are doing the best we can. And we're not perfect, right? I mean, each of us have experiences from our past that sometimes rise to the surface, and we're trying to maneuver through it. And like you said, like in that moment, for me to trust your intent and for you to trust my intent, that we each got each other's backs, even if it's being clouded at the moment by, an argument that's coming up, which will pass.
I love that. I love hearing that, because I'm reflecting on what I do as I'm hearing it. So what do I do? What don't I do? How many of you are doing that? By the way, if anybody wants to ask a question direct, with the content that you're hearing today, just raise your hand. There's a little feature to raise your hand, or you can go off of mute and, get our attention. That's really good. So how about this though? I'm really curious about this. Do you feel it's important that both sides have to be using the tools and be at least cognizant that we're trying to do, we're trying not to be triggered, but the other has to be trying not to be triggered too, right? It's a much easier field to work with if we're both trying to, play nice, I guess, right? So speak to that a little bit, because in some cases you can't get that. You still have to manage the situation knowing that the spouse is not going to go to marriage counseling, for instance, or is not going to seek out the help or listen to the audiobook or whatever. But, you might need to be armed with the tools to be able to manage through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want me to start, or you want to start that one?
Why don't you start? I have a few thoughts, but I want to see where you're going with that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of variables to this. So this is one of those conversations where it can go this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. But to the core, if the other person isn't willing to go along and listen to, let's say, like this talk right here, this, what we're doing here, this training, this session, and you bring it to your wife because they're not on this, or your husband, your significant other, whoever. And you're like, oh, I just listened to this great session with Go Mobile, and Damien brought the stuff, and Dr. Dan, Siri Shakti talked about all these amazing things, and we need to implement this in our life so we can argue less. And he or she goes, oh, I don't want to listen to that crap, or, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to listen to that, whatever. Then all you can do is work on you.
Yeah.
So you work on you, focus on working on you and working on your relationship, and they will come along. Either they will see and be inspired eventually to grow along with you, or they will grow along with you because of what you're doing, even though they're not, attending or listening or watching or doing those things or going off of, the books and the notes and stuff that you talk about. They're going to feel that. They're going to see part of it. They're going to see what you're doing, and they're going to be inspired to go along with you in some way or another, and they'll grow with you. Or the other thing will happen, they won't. And it's not that you're going to leave them. You don't leave them. They will leave themselves. They will go a different route or something. And we're not one. So if somebody comes to us and says, I have all these problems, all these challenges, yes, seek a counselor, find somebody that can help you through this. We believe in relationships. It's a commitment. Marriage, actually, it's a Sanskrit word, which I think it's like 15,000 of our English words come from Sanskrit. It's an ancient language coming from India. And marriage, actually, marriage is actually stands for carriage. It's the carriage that brings two people beyond into like the next realm for infinity.
Yeah.
So for infinity, you're moving together.
Yeah. There's a quote, they say, marriage is a carriage unto infinity. And I do want to touch on the commitment part, because one of the things that I learned was what commitment really meant. So I do want to touch on that. I feel it's really important. But one thing I wanted to say about what you were talking about, we really have firsthand experience with this type of thing, because we went through a period, probably about 7 years into our own relationship, where he was growing so much. He was doing all these things to better himself, to take his life to the next level, and he wanted to better our relationship. And I was going through some really big internal challenges. A lot of my past stuff was coming to the surface, different traumas and things. And I just wasn't there yet. I was not budging, really stubborn and stuck in my ways. And thankfully, thankfully, I was able to overcome that hump and to meet him along the way and to grow past that point. But there was definitely a point where it was very unproportionate. Like, he was growing so much, trying to take me along with him. And I was, like I said, I wasn't budging. And at that point, it was like, what do we do? It really felt like it was at that point of like, make it or break it. And because it got to that point, though, that's what actually pushed me to then blossom. And
that's beautiful. And I think it probably speaks a little bit to, he was more mature. He was older than you. He reached the point in his life where he wanted to work on me. And, and it took you seeing that that's actually a thing, and then seeing, wow, that actually works. And then seeing, wow, this is growth. And then, of course, you just followed suit, right? You obviously aged more, you got older, and you had children and things like that, your relationship. And then you went right into, now, how did you do that? How did you integrate? He was doing it on his own. How did you integrate?
Well, for me, it actually became a very spiritual type of transformation. I had never thought of myself as like, and I think that word spirituality can mean so many things, but I was like, for instance, I never knew anything about yoga. The only thing I knew about yoga was like, to me, it was like yogis, like off in like India in the caves. I'm like, what the heck is yoga, right? And we were introduced to a man who became our teacher and now our great friend, dearest friend, Guru Singh. And I remember we met him at Tony Robbins' seminar.
To me, not personally, but he sent me some work, so I'm very familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
well, actually,
great.
Tony introduced me to him at one of our platinum events, and he had said that this is one of his oldest friends that he loved and he recently reconnected with, and he brought him to all of his events, and that's where we met. And I just felt instantly connected to him. I'm like, whoa, this guy's amazing. And he had us doing this like meditation, and that was the first form of meditation I'd ever done. And he was playing this gong, and I felt high, spiritually high. Like I felt like there was like really thought there was like clouds building up behind him as he was hitting this gong, and we're doing this meditation. And I just felt amazing. He was sitting there just talking about numbers and how they, the numerology and what they mean. Mm-hmm. And I was just floating, and I was like, I felt calm, and being somebody that was always like, go, 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 and had a million things going on in my head at once with my severe ADD and just never being able to focus. Yeah, never being able to focus on just one thing or get anything done. I was all over the place. I felt my first like glimpse of what it was like to be focused and be able to do something with it and just be at a calm and just knowing. And I was like, I need more of this. And I was like, Guru Singh, you know, I want more, teach me more.
Yeah.
And then I had came home from that event and I said to my wife, I was like, we're doing Kundalini yoga every morning. And like, I pulled her out, like, and I was not a morning person. We were outside on our lawn doing chanting and doing all these yoga poses. Our neighbor was like in their backyard or in his window looking down at us, waving, or like, hey, and we're out there going, you know, just.
Well, and I know, so as you know, with
that's
sorry to
integration.
interrupt you, but
Right into it. We're doing Kundalini in the mornings.
Oh yeah. When he decides to do something, well, I'm sure you're the same way. It's like, okay, we're doing it. Okay.
Let's go, yeah.
That's why, you know, and I was.
Love it. That's why we moved to Orange County. We were in Northern California, Bay Area for years. I mean, that's where we grew up. And we just said, go on to Orange County.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
And just did it within a month.
Yeah. And, you know, so when I met Guru Singh and then his wife is Guru Prakarma, it was, you know, when you have those moments in your life where it's almost like an aha moment. It's like, this is significant to me. And it was not just meeting them individually. It was when I saw them together. I got this sense that not only did I want to understand the level of inner peace that they experience, and they didn't have to talk about it. It was just by being around them. I felt better. I felt at peace. But it was also seeing them together, the way they communicated, the way, you know, and getting to know them. I was thinking, this is what I want. This is, you know, and so I basically decided I'm going to study everything. I want to know everything about the art of yoga and about taking like conscious relationships. And so I became a student and then I became a teacher. And so that was the turning point. Yeah.
I mean, just seeing how, you know, you saw them together and you're like, okay, I already knew this man was super special. Like, I get that. Now I see them together. You're like, okay, I get all of this. That was it. Yeah. I get all this. I want that peace, that what looks like everlasting peace, right? When you see,
right.
I mean, I could just imagine my Guru Singh is Sadhguru. Not that I've met him personally. I haven't gone to any live events, but I discovered him during the pandemic and I went deep. Dan and I had a conversation about a year ago about it. And I was ready. And, you know, really just touching on that ADD and that thing, I'm about that happy medium. Well, it's not a happy medium because I need more work always, but not as bad as I used to be because I have meditation in my life now for the last at least 15 years or so. So, you know, with age, with deeper focus in the meditation, I'm able to kind of find that switch. I joked at the beginning, but the reality is I find it a lot less than I should.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But again, I didn't really start learning about the ability to shift in and off with the switch until it came to the grounding and settling that meditation can do. And so, you know, and obviously, you know, meditation's not all there is to the relationship topic, but it's, I think where it really lends to the relationship topic is, and this is something I want for Nikki, and we've got to figure out, I'm going to actually talk to you both on recommendations on how to get her to be able, because she's willing to do meditation, because I believe that where it speaks to this topic is if you can find a grounding place and find a way to get there when you need to, you can maneuver through the relationship topic, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think that Nikki wants to find meditation, but the monkey brain won't stop. And it's hard for me to give her the tool. Someone else needs to.
I have a recommendation. So for years, because in Kundalini yoga, meditation is typically done either chanting a beautiful mantra, which instead of even saying chanting, I like saying just singing. You're singing beautiful Sanskrit words. But then also a lot of the meditations have movement to them. And it called to me because I love singing and I love fluid movement. And so like I made a lot of YouTube videos, which you are welcome to show her. And It wasn't until about 2 years ago that I actually started getting into silent meditation. And that is beautiful as well. I actually do silent meditation more when I'm trying to tune into what I want to, like if I'm trying to tune into creative energy, because I'm writing a book right now, and that I just feel like just, right, comes through. But I think that if you're starting out in meditation, having something, like I said, where you can sing a beautiful mantra and have some sort of fluid movement, it gives you something to focus on. Because I know, like, right, so we sit down and we're like, you know.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
I gotta say, now that I hear you recommend that right from the question, it makes me think that when I started meditating 15 years ago, I went for a fifth gear, right? I mean, that's this whole silent meditation. I went for the advanced module right out the gate. And, you know, I struggled for the first 5 years trying to calm down the monkey brain. I learned tools from like Russell Simmons and various different people that I've shared with you, Dan, you know, that I followed and stuff. But it was once I started the mantras that I really, I mean, it also enhanced the silent, because now I found the place and I was able to apply that in the silent. And so You're right. I think that's a perfect answer. And so for anybody on here that struggles with meditation, find a mantra. You can YouTube. You can literally meditation mantras, guided meditation on YouTube, all kinds of potpourri of options will come up.
Yeah.
Pick one, find one, don't like it, go on to the next one. Obviously, they even have some stuff that I'd love for you to share some of your stuff as well. Your YouTube videos. Can you put your YouTube channel in the chat, somebody, at some point?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
See, Dan's
Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
So yeah, so back over to you.
And I like that we're talking about this, and it's so cool because even after all the notes that we wrote about relationships, we didn't write this down. But you know, I think when you're in a relationship, okay, let's say you're single and you want to find someone, or you're in a relationship already. It comes down to first, because it's us living this life. It's us. We're the one experiencing our world, you know, and so taking first responsibility for caring for ourselves. You know, I think it kind of sounds like some people think it's kind of hippy dippy saying, I love myself, right? But I mean, honestly, like if we really get down to it, self-worth, self-love is the base of everything. Because if you don't genuinely have that care for yourself, and I know firsthand, believe me, because this is one of the things that I dealt with, is not believing in myself, not actually caring for myself. I mean, I dealt with bulimia for 15 years, which I was able to heal through my yoga practice. And so, you know, when we talk about yoga, this is a tool, right? And each one of us is going to have to find those tools that are going to, it's just like the light switch, right? It switches that light on for us. And so meditation, yoga, qigong is another one I got into like 3 years ago, which I'm like in love with, because it's, fluid movements. It's beautiful. And see, you're so good at it. And then of course, like we always talk about like exercise and what we consume in our body, what we, you know, feed ourselves. All of these things is taking responsibility for who we are, for our experience. Because what happens when you treat yourself with respect and love and care, what comes out? It's that love and care is what's going to come out. And I always like to say this, we're not perfect. I mean, right? We do really good at caring for ourselves and doing all these things. Yeah. Doesn't mean we don't have moments, right? We had a moment today.
Yeah, if you were perfect, let me ask you this question. For those of you that play video games, you know, if you played a video game and it was like easy to beat the game without even, you just walked forward and that's it. And then the game was over. Would you play that game again? Would you watch a movie that all the people did was sit on a couch and they were happy and they didn't do anything? Would you watch that movie? That would be boring as hell.
Oh my God.
You'd be like, no, I'm done. That sucked. IMDb, worst movie ever.
Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the whole point of life. It's a game. Enjoy it, grow, work through it. And, I want to actually circle back to the whole thing about meditation and yoga. Like, a lot of people hear this and they say things like you did. I know, Damien, you're joking. You're like, Dan meditates for 15 hours a day, And the truth is you don't need to make it this big thing, just like working out. It is ridiculous if you've never trained or worked out for you to go, oh, I'm going to go into like one of those box gyms and I'm going to go and I'm going to do CrossFit like full out for the first time. And I've never lifted anything. And they're like doing clean snatches, like, dude, you're going to destroy yourself. No, that is horrible. You're going to mess up your back. You're going to have a major injury. You can't do that. You got to slowly get into it. It might be a brisk walk at first. Then it might be lifting with some bands or some 5-pound dumbbells or 1-pound dumbbells. Same thing goes with meditation, is you can start by just doing 5 minutes.
Yep.
Who doesn't have time for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, I do that all the time. Like this morning, I got up a little late and I was like, oh, and she had to leave. So I was like, I did like a 5-minute, 10-minute. I did like a 5-minute tune in with a couple little exercises. It was like 10, 15 minutes and I was completely done with the meditation. Yeah. So you can do short amounts. And also going back to the monkey brain thing, everybody is going to have a challenge with that. Everybody, even the masters, still have a little bit that going on. It just takes practice. The more and more you do it, the better you get at it. But it's not instant. Just like exercise, you don't work out and within a month, you've got like 21-inch guns. You don't go from like 3-inch biceps to 21-inch biceps in a month. That takes years and years and years. And you can't even watch it grow. You can't look at it and be like, oh, it's getting a little bit bigger today. No, it's not. Yeah. You won't notice it. People that haven't seen you in a while, they'll notice it. Or if you measure it, you'll notice it in a couple months. You're growing and you're getting in better shape. But that's the same thing that goes on here, is that you just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, again, just a reminder, where that speaks to relationships gives you a solid tool for grounding. And if you're both on that front, it's got to just work wonders. I mean, again, we're working on that internally. All right. So take us through some other stuff. I know you've got notes, so I don't want to steer your whole talk, but there's some things that we haven't brought up that you think are key right now. Let's do that. And definitely, I'm glad you threw in the dating topic, because by show of, I want some more interaction here from you all. So give me some show in the chat. Who's single and dating and who's married? And then, just identify yourself in here. Let's have fun with this. But I definitely, before we finish, we'll hit a little bit on dating. But
yes, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I know the first thing that we always love to talk about is clarity, right? Clarity is power.
Yeah. Are we waiting for answers, or are we going?
No. Just go ahead. I want to refer back to them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So my ADD doesn't kick in. I'm going to throw something over your face so I don't get distracted.
We're like, we got our notes now. We're prepared, everyone.
Yeah. All right. So first off, exactly what my wife was just saying is, who is the person in your dreams? You have to be clear. You have to have a clear vision. I mean, this isn't just in relationship stuff or dating or attraction or anything like this. This also is business. Anything that you want in your life, you need to be clear about. You can't just hope it just falls in your lap. You have to have a clear vision and go towards it, whether it be, like I said, business, health, fitness, whatever it is, you have a clear vision, and then you actually start moving towards that, right? You take that action to do it. So with this, you have to ask yourself, who is the person of my dreams? And again, we're talking about if you don't have somebody in a relationship, right now, you're looking to date, we don't want you to say, who's the person of my dreams, if you're sitting there next to your spouse going, oh, she's blonde, she's 6 foot. And then my wife's looking over at me going like, what the heck?
Like, I got brown hair.
Yeah.
Never.
Like, we can dye it. No, I was kidding. So have a clear vision. And, this goes for everything in your life. And, write down, I always I have this exercise in my book where I say, write down the perfect person and relationship that you want in your life.
Yeah.
And this is where, if you are currently in a relationship, you could still do this exercise.
Yeah.
You could take a piece of paper and actually write out what would be the perfect relationship for you, currently the one that you're in, what would be a perfect day, a perfect date with your wife or your significant other, and what would make your relationship perfect, and continue from that and kind of put that into your life. And then if you are single, you would write out the person that you're looking for, everything from, what are the activities they love doing? What are the hobbies they love doing? What are their interests? What do they look like? Are they athletic? Are they not? I mean, you just kind of get it. You could even the color hair you're looking for, I mean, everything, just get specific and kind of make it real for yourself. This is something that I've talked about with, even like I said, with business, which is creating a reality board. People used to call them dream boards. I don't know what they call them today, but I call it a reality board because everything I put on this board, I want it to become a reality. I don't want it to just be a dream or a goal that might never happen. And I used to make those, and every single thing came true.
From vision board to reality board. I like that.
Yeah.
Good there.
Thanks. Yeah, no worries.
And obviously, I mean, when we say get very clear with details, I mean, obviously no person is going to fit every single thing, but you think about it, like when, I like what you said, when you're in business, everybody always writes down like their goals and stuff for business and for their life. So why is this any different? I mean, I love it. Clarity is power. So getting that clarity is what's going to set these things. It's going to start setting these things in motion, that intention.
Yeah. To be honest, it puts out
on both sides of the topic here. This works as a single person that is maybe even, okay, there's a single person starting out for the first time. Then there's a single person after a long marriage, for instance. I know we have some on here. And then we have, as a happily married person, this tool works in both cases.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can literally, now you're not saying like writing down like, what are all the things I want to change about him or her? It's not that, right? I mean, that's the tendency, right? To do this exercise. So touch on that.
Yeah. So if you're going to do that, if you're in a current relationship, you definitely want to watch that. Because I know especially if you're in a place where you're going through a challenge, there's going to be a tendency to go to that. Right? I think we've done that to each other before, but
hopefully not.
No, but you want to come from a positive. What's your ultimate vision, for where you want things to evolve to? Yeah.
That could go wrong in so many levels. So I think the key is visualizing, if my wife looked over this or my significant other looked at this, would I get slapped?
Right.
Then don't write that,
No, you want them to be inspired by it, not want to slap you.
Yes. So it's a longer discussion if you want to change them completely into a different person.
Yeah.
And that would need a deeper discussion and conversation for that.
One thing that I just wish we would stay committed to it, like I said we would, and that is the date night thing. Like, I mean, let's face it, like we could sit down and talk about, all the things we want in the perfect relationship, but let's really face it. Wouldn't a day out of the 7-day period away from the young ones or away from the even adult children or away from the business partners or away from the employees or away from the customers and clients, wouldn't one day together be probably the most valuable tool? Well, you got to love the person, but I mean, really the most valuable tool, that date night and staying committed. So we did it a few times, working out of the house, working together, being in Cabo San Lucas down here. We can go to a resort for the day and pay a day pass, show our local ID. It costs us $30. All 30 goes towards drinks and food. It's like, it's free to go hang out right on the water. And we can spend the whole day and it comes with food, or, we can just sit there and, we'll spend $100 for the whole day and have drinks and food. That's a date, and without the phone, and it was so powerful. And then what we do, just to be very transparent with everybody on here, we did really good for 5-6 weeks in a row. Then something in business stopped that. It was a set day, Wednesday. Something in business changed that particular day, and then we fall into a little trap there. Then we revisit it because well, why did we quit that? Why did you said we were, okay, we will. And then we did. And then now we're looking at it going, well, you know what? We had a little cycle there where I got real busy, she got real busy, and now you got to stay committed to this stuff. I think it's, we know what we should be doing. Staying committed is the tough part.
It's being flexible. That's the thing.
Okay.
It's so the commitment and the flexibility need to go hand in hand. So it needs to adjust. Then if you get busy, she gets busy, it needs to adjust to be where it could be a date day. It can be like for us, we go on morning walks together, or we might go on a walk in the afternoon. That is our connection time then. Yeah. It's still us connecting the same that we would if we went on this date. It doesn't need to just be this big thing where you're like, oh, it needs to be, we're going out somewhere, we're doing something, we're drinking, we're doing whatever, we're dancing, whatever. It can be, we're going to go on a walk on the beach together. We're just go walk around the neighborhood. We're going to go to a park together.
One stone and do a walk as an exercise.
We're going to work out together. I mean, when we worked at the gym together and we were personal trainers, we used to work out together.
Yeah.
That was our connection time. Yeah. You know, so there are a variety of things that you could cook together.
Yeah.
You know, one day a week, you guys can cook together and make it fun. You know?
Yeah.
You can make it fun. You know, you can cook naked if you're single, or I mean, if you don't have kids, you guys can make a David and just cook naked, and then you ravish each other and, you know, in the kitchen.
Please don't do that. We have 3 kids downstairs.
Yeah. So there's a time when we can do this. And then there's a time when you can do it again. When they all fly away.
Yes.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. They don't want to see you walking around naked. I'm sorry, Dan. Okay.
So when you guys are on that walk, take me on this walk with you for a minute. Take all of us on this walk for a minute, because you know, obviously we're going on this walk, not just because we both want to walk and get some fresh air, but we want to connect, we want to spend time. So we'll probably leave the phones at home, right? Or maybe we have to have.
I do. I have it in my pocket. I could put on do not disturb or whatever, but I don't get a lot of phone calls anyway, so it's not a big deal. But if I did, I would put it on do not disturb.
So we just left the driveway, and like, what are we talking about? Like, what do typically, who brings up what first and how and what? I just really would like to dig in that.
I feel like it just happens organically. Like we'll just start talking about things.
Inspiring, positive things in life. You know, things that, like, she's working on creating a fiction book. And she talks about that, all the things that she's writing, how she loves it. I'll talk about, hey, we're creating a new relationship course. We're doing this, you know, I'm doing this interview series or this interview with Damien about relationships, and we talk about that. We could talk about this. We could talk about that. Yeah. Should I talk about dating too? Should I talk, you know, it's like, that's just part of the conversation. Just things that, oh, hey, I want to create this.
Yeah. I would say typically we do our best to talk about things that make us happy and inspire. So we're sharing that type of connection rather than like, let's just like walk and like solve any challenges. I mean, maybe sometimes that does need to come up if there's something, you know, going on that you need to discuss. But for the most part, like, yeah, like you said, like I love talking about my book. So I'll start off talking about that, and then he'll start sharing something as well. And, you know, we'll go around the neighborhood, but like I also love going to a local trail nearby, just because like something about being in nature, it's just that next level of like feeling like it's just the two of you, you know. Yeah. And so I like what you say.
Keep it all positive. You guys don't get it, you know, you go for a walk because the little ones upset you, and now you guys are talking about that, and then maybe you disagree on how you guys are handling that. You don't, by design, don't bring that on walks? Or something?
Well, I mean, if it's something that we want to solve, then sure, but I come from a positive. Yeah, again, it's again, you know, going down to the deeper root and cause of what it is. Like, I'm able to remove myself from this emotional attachment to what happened, what that argument or whatever it was, and really just kind of analyze it, get to the deep root, and then just discuss it. Like, here's the solution. So again, it's a positive thing.
That's it right there. That is the T-bone, if you will, right on the plate, right? How does one master that? That right there is the absolute relationship $1 million answer right there. I do believe.
Practice.
You just do it. It's hard. You do it. It's hard. You do it. It's hard. You do it. It's hard. When is this going to happen? Eventually. You do it. You do it. You do it.
To not be totally like, it's a regular to not be attached to what triggers you or what would trigger. It doesn't trigger you. And so, like, you know, that's how, you know, now would you say, Dr. Dan, you're 100% of the time? Because I there's times when I can do it. I might, you know, maybe 30% of the time, but, you know, are you 100% of the time, or do you lose it once in a while? I mean, you're mastering this stuff now.
you can lose it for a little bit of time and then get it back, meaning like you might get triggered at first, but then you're able to kind of walk it back and see it pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a couple minutes, maybe a half hour at the most.
Yeah.
Maybe you still feel a little bit of that emotion still, like you feel hurt or whatever, but you're still able to realize what it was. But you still might have that emotional attachment to it, but you're not allowing that to actually run that part of you.
So when you started doing that, was it that you quickly have to tell yourself in your mind, it's not about you, it's about them? Or like, how did you start doing that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. It happened organically. I think if we really get down to it, I think I hit rock bottom in my own life before we even met. That I realized that if I kept moving forward the way that I am and the way that, I deal with things, that I'm going to either end up dead or alone or who knows what.
Yeah.
And I think I just felt like, and at this time I felt like there was no hope in my life. Like I had no tools because I didn't know of anything. I didn't know of Tony Robbins. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was just living life on accident, reactionary. And then as soon as I actually listened to Tony Robbins tapes and I actually found them, funny story, I was at my parents' house, hit rock bottom, depressed, bad relationship, all that stuff, not sure what I was going to do with my life. I was going through I was at my parents' house, just visiting. They weren't home. I looked like in some of my old stuff in one of their closets. It was like my Nintendo. I had that robot, the Nintendo robot that would hold the joy. It was really dumb. I had that. And I was looking through that kind of stuff. And I saw this tape series in the back and a wrapper. And I'm like, what's this? And it said, Tony Robbins, change your life, all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa. And I called my mom and I said, what is this, Mom? And I was thinking like, hopefully this is for me because I could use something like this and she's just going to give it to me later or something. And she's like, oh no, I bought that in an infomercial. I'm probably going to send it back. So don't ruin it. And I said, well, can I listen to it at least? And she said, sure, but just don't ruin it. And I listened to the first tape and I was like, whoa, I have these tools available. I don't have to just be reactionary and live my life. I don't have to accept this kind of life, that I can actually control my own emotions and all this other stuff. And it just gave me those tools. It gave me a glimpse of what I needed to do. And it just opened this whole new world to me. So ever since then, I became a student of myself, of the people around me and the world. And it was like a light switch for me that I'm just going to do this from now on. So every single time something happens, I always asked, what does this mean? What could this mean? What is their intent? Do I really feel that they're really trying to hurt me, that they're trying to take advantage of me, that they're maybe lying to me? And if it comes up that they actually are, and it happens several times, then why would I want that person in my life? Obviously, I'm not going to. I'm only going to have people in my life that I can trust their intent fully, no matter what happens, what they do, their actions or anything like that. As long as I can trust their intent, they're going to be in my life.
That's very well said.
Yeah,
and a good way to answer that as well. My tool for doing that, I learned from the surrender experiment. Michael Singer, you've probably heard of his work.
Sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's the surrender experiment, but it was recommended to me, and it's really about trying to detach yourself from the emotions on everything, right?
Yeah.
And just going with the flow and realizing that, things will work themselves out. I mean, obviously you can't just be asleep behind the wheel, but you can kind of give into things. And that was hard for me. I think the surrender experiment recommendation was really good for me because as a young 20-year-old Damian Zamora business owner, at the time when we had 70 employees all over the place, it was an absolute nightmare of stress. When I think about how I worked then, get up in the morning, get there, be the first in the office, all this stuff. And I think about how I work now. It's really crazy. but the young 22-year-old, cocky, arrogant, yes, I'm still a little bit, whatever, little machismo, whatever they call it. But I really try my best, not to be that way. But really, 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 really have evolved as a human being probably around in my 30s, mid 30s. But that first 10, 15, that first decade of being an entrepreneur and young and making it really went to my head. And, I had to learn that I gotta quit reacting the way I do to employees or to friends or to spouse or to in legal situations and all that stuff. And, I think, to be fair, when you throw a young person at 16, 17, 18 right into entrepreneurship and then things explode, they're going to have to learn and figure it out by doing everything wrong. I mean,
big time.
but it's when I got into my mid 30s and it almost like lines up with you when Dr. Dan started first and you come around, was it like 5 to 7 years into it?
7 years.
Into it. So it was 7 years before you came around.
7 years into what?
Into wanting to like get on that path of like wanting to work on herself and wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, okay. Yeah. I thought you meant when I started changing.
So I think it goes back to that maturity thing. For me, like at 25, if somebody would told me to meditate, I would have told them to go pound sand.
Well, I would have told anybody else to pound sand too. People had actually said meditate, yoga, all that kind of stuff. And I bought a DVD and tried it. And I was like, this sucks. What is this? And I was a bodybuilder and I was like a meathead, and I was like, not for any of that stuff. And the spirituality and the meditation and the yoga and the energy work, it came from Tony Robbins. And because of that, I trusted and I was willing to give it a try.
Yeah.
But I actually had hit rock bottom and I found the Tony Robbins tapes. And within just a couple months is when me and Siri Shakti met. So I had attracted her into my life because I did that exercise where I wrote the perfect relationship, the perfect person. And, we had our ups and downs in the beginning as well. But again, it's not about being perfect all the time or being able to instantly spot it. It's about being able to practice it and correct it when it happens. And if it takes a day, if it takes a couple hours, it takes a couple minutes, if it takes a couple weeks, a couple months, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just keep doing it. Keep practicing it. Keep getting better at it. Keep catching yourself and not beating yourself up for not catching it. Because that's another loop right there. Beating yourself up like, why didn't I do it earlier? Why didn't I blah, blah, blah. That's part of the negativity. That's part of that little monster inside of you trying to keep you into the shit. Trying to keep you into this crappy part of you where you're going to feel despair, like you just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't do it. Yeah. Everybody else is right about that. You can't do it.
I love that saying, you can judge your strength by the strength of your opposition, because I love this lesson. One of the laws of the universe is that everything has equal opposite. So, let's say you're working on yourself, you're growing, you're like, things are going great. Well, the natural opposite of that is you're going to get what we love to call it pushback, right? It's that internal pressure. It's almost like you said, like the little monster saying like, sit down, you can't do this,
Yeah, that's Newton's law, right? Third law, I believe it is. The third law, which is for every action, there's a reaction, equal and opposite reaction. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So, that pushback's going to come. And when it does, Guru Singh actually has a great analogy. He says, when you're sailing, if you're a sailor and you're sailing a boat and the wind comes and it's pushing against your sails, what do? You adjust those sails, you angle the sails to where you catch that wind in the right position. And then that wind will actually push you forward. Mm-hmm. So in life, it's about when you get that pushback, adjust your sails, your direction, and allow that to help give you the momentum to move forward. So it's about finding those angles in life. So it's about catching what you did or what happened and being able to self-adjust. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, just keep doing it, keep pushing forward. And, again, like we said, you're not going to be perfect. There's times where like I'm telling my son, like he's pissing me off. And I'm like, look, you're pissing me off right now. Please just leave me alone. I love you. I always tell him this. I love you, but you're bugging me. So please just leave me alone for a little while,
That's a fun way of doing it. Yeah, getting your point across and not,
I'm going to spank you. I'm going to give you a slap on the butt, but I love you.
Yeah.
It's not out of anger, so it's okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's get some questions in from the audience. Christine has one more on the doctor part of Dr. Dan, ? So where did the doctor part of Dr. Dan come from? I think is what Christine's asking.
All right. Long story short, I had actually, when I wrote my books, I had hired a author's coach who worked for Tony Robbins, and she helped him with one of his books. And she worked for him for like 20 plus years, Ann McIndoe. And she has this thing called Authors Boot Camp, where she teaches people how to, read their books. You speak your book and then they transcribe it and all that stuff. And a lot of people talk about this now, but she was like the first I'd ever heard that ever talked about doing this. Is back in like 2006, 2007. So I was talking to her and she's like, oh, you got to brand yourself. Like, ooh, you should be like the love guru. You should be Dr. Dan, Dr. Love. That's you, Dr. Dan, Dr. Love. And I'm like, but I'm not a doctor and I hate school. So I'm not going to go get a doctor just so I can call myself Dr. Dan. She's like, oh, just call yourself that. And I'm like, no, I don't feel right calling myself doctor if I don't at least have something that I can like legitimately say at least a little bit like, well, I can kind of. So then I started looking into like, what's the easiest way to get like, to become a doctor, right? To get that credential, no matter how easy it is or whatever. And then I looked at spirituality. I'm like, cool, I'm into yoga, meditation, doing all this stuff. I went through the Oneness University. I did all this other stuff. And so then I looked into religious doctorate, which was the easiest. But then the only ones I could find were like, oh, well, then you have to do like Christian or Catholic or something like that. And I'm like, well, I don't have those single beliefs, right? Which is not just one thing. It's about everything. So I found this Universal Life Church and they're like, oh, send us money, read our booklet, learn about it, and then you can become a doctor. So long story short, it's my stripper name. I did get a certificate for it. But when people do ask, like what kind of doctor I am, I used to have these cards, business cards, when I used to hand those out that said, I was Dr. Dan, proctologist in life. So if you got a problem, bend over, I'll solve it. You want one or two fingers? There you go.
There's the doctor. Ladies and
I forgot about that. Well, it's actually a doctorate in metaphysics.
Yeah, it's metaphysics and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yep.
Jay says, Jane Fonda said it's closed up shop down there. That I'm surprised isn't a meme somewhere in terms of intimate relationships. She surely lived out lots of fantasies that many would envy and is now just to everything else. I can relate. Yeah, my eyes are bad, as you can see. I need to, that's something I need to solve in my life is my eyes. Also on these small screens. Did you have a question? Somebody coming in there? Marge? Does anybody have a question? All right. Well, back to you.
There is something that I definitely want to touch on about if you're single and you want to find somebody. And well, there's two parts to this. The first one is, obviously like if you're single and you really want to be in a relationship, there's that energy of like, like I want what I don't have yet. Right. And so we always say like, first be at peace with being single, like be happy and single. And, when people think about meeting people, they're, instead of relating it to it as I'm going to go out there and I'm going to like find the person. Instead, we like to discuss it as meet people, make new friends. I mean, let's say you're interested in something. Okay. We've been talking about yoga. So let's stay on that topic. If you're really interested in yoga, take yoga classes, go to maybe some festivals. There's so many of those. So whatever it is that you're interested in, find ways to meet people that are interested in those things as well. I know we're plant-based, we're vegan, so we love going to vegan festivals, and we've met so many people that way. And I think that when you relate to it in those terms, it also helps you relax, because many of us, when it comes time to, want to put yourself out there, you feel tense about it. You feel nervous. That social anxiety can come up sometimes. But if you look at it as just you're out there to meet people and make friends, instantly that helps you relax already.
Yeah, and not just single people. So we're not saying just go up to the guys or the girls that you think are attractive or whatever. It's about making friends. So like you can go up to couples and introduce yourself and talk or say, hey, I like that shirt. Where'd you get it or whatever? And you have conversations. You get more comfortable talking to people, especially if you're like me, who always had like this anxiety, social anxiety being around people, which a lot of people are like, oh, how'd you become such a people person? And I'm like, that's funny because I was never a people person, really. Like I would just go out and start talking to people. She did. She inspired me to do it, but you can become better at it to where you go out and have conversations. And now I call it the leap first and let the net appear, which is you just do it without even thinking about it. It's like phone anxiety. Like, you know, if you had to do cold calls ever, you're like, oh my God, and the phone feels so heavy and you had to make a phone call. Well, you know, to try and sell to somebody. But I learned my secret was dial the number and fucking pick it up and just start doing it. And the phone's going to ring and you can either do it or sink, you know? So I just do it without even thinking. It's the same thing when it comes to talking to people. So get to know people, talk to people, make friends, because you never know. Number one, it's great to have more friends, especially like-minded friends, you know, people that have the same interests. You say have more stuff to do, but they have friends that they probably want to hook up with you or with somebody else or something like that. So it's all about just making friendships and meeting new people.
Yeah, I think that I'll add to that, you know, for the single folks that are on the call, you know who you are, you know who I'm talking to. But I think that it's important probably to add in a mix of where you go to go meet people.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like if we're going to go to a bar all the time, or a club all the time, then that's what we're doing to go meet. But like if we go to a vegan festival or we go to a music festival or we go to a like-minded, I know there's going to
go hiking. You do one of those hiking groups. There's hiking, biking. There's all kinds of groups.
Yeah, put yourself where other people that like to do what you like to do are going to be. And then if you have that commonality, just go up and start talking to people.
Yeah.
And not with some intention that I'm looking to find my wife or husband. I'm just looking to make friends and let things organically grow. I like that approach. I like that approach because you're right. If you really are just trying to score, there's a level of anxiety that's there. So there's probably a lot of shots you don't even take because of that anxiety. How do we know this? Young men, right? Way back when, right? Where it's like if you just lose that pressure of you're trying to hook up, you know, and let's just make friends, I think it's a much healthier approach and you probably have a lot more success. So for the single folks out there, you know, just put yourself in the environments you want to be in with people that you want to be around and make friends, and relationship stuff organically happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, a fun little side story to that. I just thought of this is that before I learned all this stuff, I was, you know, bodybuilder. I was 250, 260 pounds. I was afraid to just go I'd go to the clubs with my friends, but I'd be afraid to talk to girls there, you know, like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, I just felt always awkward doing that. I just felt like a creep. So I never did it. So instead I started working at nightclubs as a bouncer. So I was working in San Francisco as a bouncer, and that gave me the excuse to talk to women, and they would talk to me. And it was like, they didn't feel like I was just coming on or whatever. I was having conversations with them, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know, it was right. You know,
Yeah. You know,
so don't do that though, is what I'm saying. That was just a story.
My 12-year-old son was, one day he brought up this worry that he had. He said to us that he was worried, you know, how's he going to meet someone someday? And, you know, how's he going to feel comfortable like in those situations? And my 17-year-old daughter, and, you know, I think we can learn so much from our kids. She actually said to him, well, that's easy. Just make lots of friends, because then you have that, you know, because think about it, the best relationship comes from those people that were friends before, because you have that connection and that care for one another. And I'm like, brilliant, you know, like,
yeah,
that's really awesome. So your kids, let's talk about that for just a sec, you know, if you can. Your kids, you know, what do you teach them about relationships at these ages?
Everything that we discuss here, we talk with them about.
Yeah,
we're really open with them.
And it organically happens. So it's not something we're like, hey kids, today we're going to talk about this. No, it's if we have an argument, we talk about it. Yeah. Well, we used to actually, we did do family meetings for a while. The kids liked it too. It was fun. We need to start doing that again, where we talk about things going on in our life and stuff. But yeah, so it just organically happens. So we might be talking about like a family member or somebody, one of our friends, or one of my coaching students, or a conversation I had with somebody else. And it would come up, and then we would discuss it, and we would talk about it, and just kind of give them insight into that. So we Yeah, we don't, there's very little we don't discuss with our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually very transparent with them. And I think that this
with
was
our flaws too.
Yeah, this was a little harder for me because, you know, I love my parents, but growing up, they hid everything from us. So I had no idea there was any challenges between them. And then one day they sat me down and said they were getting a divorce, which was the weirdest thing for me because in my world, everything was fine. They would fight behind closed doors and everything. Not saying you have to have huge fights in front of your kids. That's not the point. But because there was no transparency, I had no idea what was going on. And so we look at it.
Or traumatizing.
Big time, yeah. And so we look at it as, I mean, we don't give them all the details. There's no need for that. But we look at our struggles that we've been through as perfect learning lessons for our kids. And so, and you have to pick the appropriate age. Like obviously there's things that I'll tell my 17 and my daughter who's about to be 20, I'll tell them different things than maybe my 12-year-olds. Yeah.
Sorry. I just
started,
what are you laughing about? I just started thinking about when Bodie would like try to come in our room and be like, the door was locked. I know what you guys are doing. And he's like, were you guys having sex? And I'm like, do you really want to know that answer? Do you really want to know?
No.
I was like, if we were or weren't, do you really want to know that answer? He's like, no. I know you were.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah.
I said, I'll tell you if you really want to know.
I think that a lot of times parents, and I can see where this comes from, that parents will hold back communicating with their kids that, hey, mom and dad is going through this, or, you know, this is happening for me, because we don't want to trouble our children. But giving them, you know, I'll tell you what, by being transparent with my kids, it has given them the ability to be in the position of being the helper or being the teacher sometimes. I mean, I'm their parent, yet I've seen them step up and be little teachers to me. And that's why I will always say to people, kids, teenagers are so much more wise than we give them credit.
Yeah. They help us a lot of times too.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Coming from someone who's had a lot of tweens and a lot of teens, they are amazing what they know a lot more than you know. And so, yeah, I think open transparency within the family is good. I think we were really good at that when the kids were tweens and teens, as far as like, there wasn't much that we kept from them. You know, it's a healthier environment, I think, if there's full transparency. I mean,
yeah.
Well, yeah. Let's be honest, because I mean, when we look at like what especially, you know, public schools and, you know, society and what's out there, Hollywood, movies, television, you know, all the things going on out there, they give this unreal like world of what relationships are like or dating is like, you know, with these not fantasy, what is it called? The Lust Island or some crap like that on Netflix or something. You know, all these different kinds of shows and things going on. It's all this unreality. I call it unreality television. And so being able to be real in front of them and them seeing our flaws and us making up and figuring each other out and having these conversations and allowing them to be part of it. So we don't, obviously, if we're arguing, we don't go, okay, we're arguing, let's go downstairs and argue in front of the kids.
Right.
It's just, if it happens, it happens. Or we talk about what we realize, if it's a teachable moment where we're like, oh, hey, kids, we just realized this. So we wanted you to know as well. So, you know, you got to kind
of. And then they
out.
see how we come together. And so I feel like they've seen firsthand how we've grown. And plus, because this is a safe relationship, you know, we're not talking about, I mean, an abusive relationship is a whole different story, right? But we're in a healthy relationship and they know that, and we know that. Yeah. And so, you know, I feel like, I mean, like I said, we don't just tell them every single thing of our past, of course. You know, I mean, we all have our own things we keep to ourselves. But if I notice a moment come up where it can be a teachable moment and I can call from my past experience and share it, like something came up with my daughter and I shared with her something that was a vulnerable moment in my life, it actually made things stronger between us and it gave her more confidence as well. So I think keeping an eye out for those moments where you can have those teachable moments, and sometimes needing to be vulnerable yourself and maybe expose some of your own internal things that you've worked on or you're working on now is the best lessons.
Yeah, because kids have it so tough, man. I mean, like they especially since, you know, they go to school.
Kids have had
yeah, a lot of kids had it tough because, you know, they have these unreal expectations put on them. They got to go to school. They got to do homework. They have to feel like they have to be perfect all the time. You know, like maybe, you know, you weren't, maybe they have a parent or parents that are constantly telling them everything they're doing wrong. And if you're one of those people, then you could always change that. And I recommend you change that. I'm assuming that, you know, people listening to this, because you're guys at a higher level, you're not the ones doing that. But if you are, you can change that. And I recommend you do that, because when I was saying kids have it so tough is they feel they have to be perfect and they don't hold any value. And that goes back to what, you know, you were saying, that, you know, that children do hold value and they can actually teach us as well. So we make it a point of, when our kids do something or say something, we give them a compliment. We give them a hug. We tell them, great job on that. Whoa, that's genius.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. When my son said to one of our friends, he was talking about like he said something like, fake it till you make it. The guy said, our friend, you know, my age, right? And Bodie goes, don't fake it, just make it. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And he goes, and our friend was like, I love that. That is so great. So then I put it on a t-shirt. It says, don't fake it, just make it.
Yeah.
And I put hashtag Bodie Logic.
Yeah.
You know, that's his son, Bodie.
Yeah.
So we've covered relationship with kids. We've covered dating for the single folks. We've covered better relationships with your spouse and significant other, the partner. Is there an area that we didn't touch yet?
Well, I love what John I think it was John said.
I saw that.
He goes, I heard that said, God gave us kids so that we could learn from them. And there's another way that's said that we've always kind of like kept in our mind and we used to write down and always look at, which was it? I always get it confused with my ADD. I flop it. What was it again? Like, we don't, like, parents don't raise responsible children.
Oh, so I think it's parents don't raise responsible children, children raise responsible parents. Something like that. Basically meaning that, I mean, I know for us, you know, when we had our first child, yeah, we were adults, but we were so much more immature back then.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how having a child and raising them, you become, you have to, it like forces you to grow
and want to grow. So for us, that's what it's done. It's inspired us. And in business too. When people say like, how do you become successful in your business? I'm like, just have more kids. Every time I had a kid, I made like $100,000 more.
How expensive. No doubt. No doubt. All right. Well, I've got lightning round for you. So here it comes. And I think we'll do a double up. So we'll start with you, Dan. A book that you would recommend other than your own, and why? And then you're gonna have the same question.
Now, is it a book on relationships or
any book that you would recommend for this audience, and why?
Oh boy, you put us on the spot. That's good.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a lightning round. It's going to be more of like a sparkle round, because it's going to take a little while to turn into lightning, because I got to really think that through, because, you know, like just side story on this is when I first got into the Tony Robbins stuff and started learning, I'd never read a book, like a full book in my entire life up until that point. I was in my early mid-20s. And once I got into the Tony stuff, I just started becoming a sponge. I probably read 200 books in that month. You were actually the one that inspired me. You're like, oh, you should read a book. I'm like, books suck. And because I remember from school,
I remember that.
You know, I would look at a word in the book. I'd read a page on the book in school, and I would not remember anything that I just read. Like, I was completely on autopilot. I'm like, what did I just read? I don't know. I had to keep rereading the same thing. So I thought the same thing was with every book. So then she's like, oh, let's go to the bookstore. I'm like, this sucks. And she's like, just pick a book, just trust me. So I did. And it was like the first book, and I'm not saying you should get this one, but I'm just saying, was like, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff was the first book I got, because it was small. And I was like, oh, and it was like short stories. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I was like, so then I became a sponge. I read like 200 books that year. And then it got to a point where I'm like, I need to stop reading because I get like the concepts and I get a lot, and I need to start creating.
Great.
And that's why I haven't really read, and I'll listen to podcasts. I'll watch YouTube videos. I'll do that kind of stuff, but I haven't really read a book in, I don't know how long. It's been a while, but I would probably say one great book, not so much about relationships, but could help, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an oldie but a goodie, Dale Carnegie. But that actually allowed me to realize, people people care more about what they want to talk about and what they like more. Like if you take a group photo with a group of people, the first thing they do is look where they are. They don't look for their friends first. They look, oh, where am I in this photo? The same thing goes with conversations and everything else. So that really stuck to me. And just to give you a quick side story to that, that probably saved our daughter's life because she was in a horrible car accident in the ICU for like 13, 14 days total. And she was like 7 months old at the time. And what I did is I used those tools and strategies that I learned in there was, okay, these doctors and nurses in the ICU would come by and just like, they would like stop when they needed to, look at your chart and walk off. There was no emotion, no nothing, because they had to keep going and going and going. They did this all day, all night, right? So I was like, what could I do to get special attention and let them know that that we care, we appreciate them.
Their value.
Their value.
Yeah.
So I actually saw that a lot of them were like eating little candies and stuff to kind of get that sugar rush to keep going. So number one, we put balloons up around our daughters, that cage that they put her in, which is a crib, but a cage it looked like. And I put up photos on both sides of her happy, smiling with family, all these love notes and stuff to her, get well and all these things. We put it all over the place. Then I put bowls of candy in front of her right there in front of her chart, like right on the little crib on the little table they had there. And they would come through and they would all stop. I'm like, yeah, please have some. We like ordered them pizza and stuff.
Yeah, and they would come to us, and I mean, they had to come, but they would stop more often and conversate with us. And
all the time.
We got on first name basis, and it was like, you really felt this different quality of connection. But not only that, it was we talk about like everything's energy and it raised the vibration. I mean, we even had a discussion with like our family, and we said, when you come and you're around her, please put out good vibes and keep that intention that she's going to be healthy and whole. And it was just, so yeah.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful moment from a bad situation.
Yeah. So that is a good book. Yeah. Actually John said, I was thinking of that book too.
That was such a good story. Thank you for sharing that. And you were completely different from everybody else they were working on. This was a family that actually was, yes, they were very concerned about their patient, but actually for the first time, they were concerned about everybody else as well. They don't get that. That was brilliant. What's your book? What book would you recommend?
I thought of two different books. The first one that I really loved was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And that was one of those books, I think, because for so long we were so, we went to all the Tony Robbins events, and, he was part of Platinum Partners. And so that is the second best thing the events are so amazing. That's why I say the second best thing. But if you're not able to go to one of his events, those books have so much value. They're big books, but he really takes you through all the steps of, his whole teachings of basically breaking down like the old patterns and getting to what's really going on, with you, and being able to gain back that personal power, which is personal power. That's one of the names of his events. So that's one, but it was funny. When you asked me that question, the first thing that came to mind is not what you would expect. And I think it's because one of the things that I've worked on in my life, because he's really good at this, is being more lighthearted, being able to like let things roll off of me instead of attaching to things so much. and being more playful in the moment. And I've really begun to see that that's one of the greatest tools now in my life, is being able to joke back and be playful whereas before I would maybe get more serious. And what really helped me is reading children's novels, specifically Harry Potter. I've always loved fantasy books, but Harry Potter was one of those books that just really did it for me. I've read those books so many times. I've seen the movies, and J.K. Rowling, when she created these books, she created them for children. She never knew that she was going to grow such a huge adult fan base. And I remember one time I was talking to Guru Singh about this, and we had this discussion. Why is that? Well, you think about the world today. Adults have so much responsibility. Things are very serious. And not only with COVID and this global warming stuff that we're facing, there's a lot of serious stuff going on in the world. Well, if you look at children, young children, they're playful. Things do roll off of them much quicker. They may fall down, scrape their knee and cry for a minute, but they get up and they can go back into playing and doing what they were doing. And so what I've noticed is by reading children's novels, I was able to reconnect with that sense of what I like to call inner magic. And that's why I was inspired. I'm writing a children's novel myself right now.
That's awesome.
So, it could be Harry Potter, it could be a different children's novel, but definitely one of those things. Yeah.
Really, really cool. And I'm going to explore.
Nice.
I've wanted to get into some reading that's, fiction reading, not just the business stuff. And I'm actually going to take your advice and try that, because that could be interesting. Dahl Silverstein, my favorite is the Giving Tree. That's my favorite kid book. That's not a novel. That's just a book, but children's book. Think about the good messaging from that book. I used to read that to the kids all the time. The Giving Tree. That was my favorite book to read to them. All right.
Nice.
Best advice you've ever received, Dr. Dan. Best advice you've ever received.
Oh, wow. Best advice. It's got to be from Guru Singh. He's giving me all the best advice ever. And I would probably say it comes down to the commitment part, where we had our challenge in our relationship, where we were kind of talking about that, where it was either I'm exactly what I said, either I'm going to continue moving. I was moving forward, and either she was going to come along or she wasn't. She had made the decision that, and we had already had, our 2 kids together. She had made the decision that she was going to leave the relationship, the marriage. And I had said, you know what, if it's meant to be, then that's fine. But I said, for the sake of our children and the sake of ourselves, let us first meet with Guru Singh. Let's fly down to LA, because we were in Northern California at that time. Let's fly to LA. Let's meet with him. And whatever comes from that, if you decide or I decide or whatever, one of us decides, okay, let's not be together anymore, then so be it. Then it is what it is. I mean, I can't do anything about that. But, I'm fine with it. It's not like I'm not going to be okay not being together, but I don't want to make a mistake out of, for no reason.
Yeah.
So I said, let's talk to him. Let's get all, let's just get every, side of it, and let's decide from there. And he had said something. He had said, look, with Hollywood and everything else and all that we've been taught from past relationships and other people and from our own parents many times, is that, this love thing, right? I like the way you explain it better, but love and all this, love is like the house, right?
Do you want me to describe it?
Yeah, please. Yeah,
okay.
You please say.
So the relationship between a couple is like a house. And the beautiful paint job, the flowers outside, the decor,
the butterflies
around the home, the beautiful pictures, that is the love. But think about it. What holds that house together? Nails hold that house together.
And that's the commitment. Commitment is the nails. It holds that house together. And when that house is held together, there's no choice. It's there is no option for divorce.
Yeah.
You must be committed, and there is no option for that. Now, obviously, we're talking about a loving relationship that's willing to grow and, you know, do all this together. If we're talking about somebody that's abusive or whatever, then that's a whole different story. We're not talking about, you know, I'm going to be with them even though they beat me or they're like verbally abusing me constantly and, you know, and they're not willing to go to therapy. That's a whole different thing. But, you know, obviously for us, it was like, okay, that's the commitment. Okay, we're going to be committed. That is no longer on the table. Divorce is no longer on the table. So what do we need to do to make this work?
Yeah.
Not to just be together for the kids' sake, not that crap, you know?
Yeah.
How are we going to make this work and be the best that we can be together?
Yeah. I would have to say the same thing, because when he taught me that, it was not only him, it was his wife as well. It was really a light switch went off. I had never really understood what commitment meant. And so I felt like I had always kind of had one foot in, one foot out of the relationship. I think a lot of people go into relationships thinking, oh, I hope, I pray that this works. We'll just see, you know, if it does, hoping that it does. And so at that time, I really committed. That didn't mean everything was now perfect. That was when the hard work started of like, you know, dealing with whatever was going on with me to get myself, you know, to bring myself to that point of even wanting to leave the relationship. And so having that commitment gave me the security now, knowing that we were secure in this relationship, that neither one of us was going anywhere. And it gave me that room to now heal where I needed to heal, needing to be who I needed to be. You know, for many years, because I wanted to explore Kundalini yoga, I wanted to go 100% into it. And so like I wore like the turbans, I wore the outfits that a lot of the teachers wear. And I don't now, but I needed that at that time. I needed to go and do all of that
To heal yourself.
To heal myself and to figure out who I really wanted to be and who I was. And so 100% I'm with you on the commitment gave me the freedom to explore who I was, knowing that he was going to be there and I wasn't going anywhere.
You know, I think that is common. That's beautiful, by the way. And I just think that it's common for the one spouse to think the other one, to always think that they're going to leave. And as a result, they handle fights differently or the resolution of fights differently, because there's always this thought that, you know, they're not going to be here anyway. And it's a subconscious talking to you because it's not even real. And wow. Yeah, that's really, that's awesome. Once you guys were both committed, that's the nails that allowed you, since you were the only one that was bouncing around. He was on a path. He was on a path. He was an arrow getting ready for the bullseye. He was on the right path. And so you had the opportunity, and you learned from that, him bringing you into his tent,
yes, and
introducing you to his guru and showing you what he's been working on for 7 years.
Yeah.
You realized, you know, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have to tell me that. I get it. I feel it. It's here. And that just gave you the, I see that. I see how I can create the freedom to just really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something important to mention here is.
Thank you for letting me fill that one out. That was good.
Yeah. No, I'm glad for that. And one thing I think is really important to add to this is that one of the things that we had to do in order to move forward and grow was to create a safe environment for ourselves, because obviously, you know, she had learned from past experiences with her father leaving, you know, the family and what he did. And so we had to we had to create this safe environment, and that I like to call it like, how's your social diet, right? Like, what's your social diet like, right? If you have somebody in your life, like whether it be a friend or a family member that's constantly in your ear with negativity and crap, constantly saying like, why are you even with that person? Or, oh, they're not good enough for you, or you should do this, or you should do that. And they're just constantly making you feel like shit. You know, it's better to kind of temporarily at least remove that person or limit your interactions with that person. If they're a family member, if they're a friend, they shouldn't be a friend anymore. Like, you need to move on, right? So it's about cleansing yourself of those negative, I like to call them spiritual vampires, right? Yeah. They're just like trying to suck the life out of you because it makes them feel better, even though it doesn't, but they feel a little bit better about themselves by doing that.
Yeah, I agree, because at that time, like I had two women friends, and granted they were good people, but you know, they had both gone through really challenging relationships, been divorced, and I know one of them said they were never going to be in a relationship again. The other was just single. And so I was getting a constant stream of advice of that I should just go off on my own. And, you know, I was getting all that information coming in. Granted, they did not know our relationship. All that, you know.
And they loved me, and we had great conversations, and we hung out together, and they were like, oh, I want her to hang out with her too, like singles. So we go out.
So the important thing is it's not that you can't have.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Was that?
You go.
No, it's okay. So what I learned is that it's not that I can't have a friend, these friendships, but I'm very mindful of what I speak about, what I'm speaking about with, you know, who I'm talking to about what. So when it comes to like relationship stuff, I won't just go and talk to anyone. I'll talk to, well, my friend Guru Singh, or maybe my mother, you know, she's in a very healthy relationship, but I won't just go talk to anybody, you know. So picking and choosing. So it's not that you can't have these people in your life, but it's right.
If you want to get fit, you talk to your trainer, you talk to somebody that's also interested in working out, that understands that they're in shape. You don't talk to your personal trainer about financial advice and investments unless they're an expert in that. So it's the same thing with relationships with friends and family is you pick and choose what you discuss certain things with only if they can support and help you in that thing. If they can't, you don't discuss it with them.
Yeah. But we have fun doing other things and talking about all sorts of things, you know?
Yeah. That's really good advice. And I think that the first part of your advice there was really important for young relationships, because I think when we're in the early 20s, most of our friends, if we're married in our early 20s, I got married at 27, but if we're in the early 20s and you're married, most of your friends are single. And most of the feedback you're going to get is single feedback. And that makes
well, they were in their 30s.
That can wreck early relationships. I mean, really, it can. I mean, we can all remember that stuff. Well, this has been absolutely awesome. Thank you both. Any final words? I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got kids to get back to, and it's a Friday night. So,
well, can I give everybody a free
please. How they can give them a free copy of that. Tell them how they can follow you. I put the YouTube links in here as well.
Cool. I put in a link. So rockstarinlife.com/go mobile. And that will actually get you both of my books that you can download for free. No opt-in, just right to the page, click download, gives it to you in PDF.
Title of the books, of each book. Title of the books.
Yep. So here's how to attract the person of your dreams and keep them. Okay. And then the other one is behind me. It's Rockstar, 45 Lessons to be a Rockstar in Your Life and Make the World Your Stage. Okay. This one,
beautiful.
The track book actually has like exercises you can do in here. It's fun. It's more interactive. It's a 21-day journey. The Rockstar book is actually more inspired by like Garfield, Far Side kind of books that I used to love. Like just open it up and read one thing and a little comic and laugh. And that's how I put it together. Even with this book, I hired a cartoonist, cost me a couple grand to get illustrations drawn for it to go along with all my jokes and my personality. So it's a fun read. Like here's a fun one with like a stripper. So
I should put my book up there too.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I have. I wrote about 2 years ago. I published a pregnancy yoga book, and it's actually called "Birthing Like the Asian." Birthing Like the Ancients. And basically, I took ancient cultures and I studied how they took women through, pregnancy and birth, and I was so inspired by the way that the ancient humans in different cultures would approach this time in a woman or in a man's life. And so I put it all together and I walk them through all the trimesters, giving yoga postures, ancient wisdom, different herbs, and I love crystals that are good for each time throughout the pregnancy. So I'll put that up there as well.
Yeah, and I should mention something. Somebody asked what the names of the books were again. They're on there. The link's right there. You can download them. But I took them off of Amazon. I think you can still find them on there somehow, but because I'm about to redo them. This book, I don't really have to change anything as far as content goes. I was just going to change like a couple things because I didn't have my son born at the time. So I'm going to add that back in there, or add that in there. And then my wife at the time, she had went through a spiritual journey, and she had chosen a spiritual name, which was Shanta. So that was a powerful name for her at the time. But then she was given the spiritual name Siri Shakti by yogis.
Like 3 months later, I was given this name through like becoming a teacher, Siri Shakti. And so I was like, well, I'd only used Shanta for a few months. I'm switching.
Yeah. So don't think it's a different woman in this book. It's the same woman. And then in the Rockstar book, 45 Lessons to Be a Rockstar in Your Life, Make the World Your Stage, I'm only going to change one thing in there because this is before I'd started my marketing journey. And one of the advice in there was to join like an MLM or something like that in order to get coaching and support and to learn strategies and tools.
But I see where you're going.
Yeah, but today there's so many other ways of doing that as well. Like obviously we have YouTube, we have Skillshare, we have podcasts, we have all these like tools available to us that you could just learn online. Back then you couldn't. So I'm going to add that in there so they have that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Learning tool.
Welcome.
A tool or resource. A learning tool. That was part of the lightning round. I almost forgot. Then you can just either one of you do one. A learning tool that you would recommend. Like for instance, my answer to that would be something like I would come up with things like Brain FM. Great app because it can really hone in on focus. So do you have a learning tool that you'd recommend?
It's funny. I automatically go to homeschool stuff since I'm a homeschool mom.
Yeah.
So I'll just say the first thing that came to mind was Khan Academy, which this man, it started out small. Now it's a huge website. And basically it's his devotion was to create a site that could teach children math. What I love about it is that you hear his voice as he's writing on a board, not on a board, but like you get to see on the screen, him writing out all the math lessons. And it takes them from like preschool all the way to like the highest levels of math. I mean, this guy is like a genius. And my kids, they're such artists. They really resisted math. And so when I presented this to them, it was the first thing that clicked because it was visual and I love it as well. Like I feel like my math skills have improved as well. So there's my homeschool mom suggestion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a tool. I mean, I've used so many different things, but I think the things that I go back to, which isn't really even like that, like great, like as far as like, whoa, that's a new one, right? Would be for me, because I used to carry around like those Mead folders and also like different kinds of like journals that I could write my ideas in, but they would get like all mixed up and mangled and all over the place, and I forget where they were. So today I do what's called mind dumps. So I have mind dumps, which I use. Actually, I've switched over. I used to use Evernote, but Evernote's been really slow and been messing up when it comes to like using different devices, and it would make duplicate notes and screw things up. So I've been using Apple Notes, the built-in app, which I use on my computer and on my phone, and it's been syncing great into the cloud. So it's like I can go back and forth, or Google Drive or something like that. Pretty much anything that can sync across multiple devices. And then I just write any idea that I have onto its own note, and then I can expand on that if I want. And that's helped me like tremendously for everything that I've wanted to create, or just things that I was thinking I just need to get off my brain, and then I might never go back to it, but at least it's there and it's out of my head. So I don't do what's called looping, which is just constantly thinking about that every now and then. So instead of actually put it down into paper, the only other thing I would mention would be Wim Hoff, which is a form of meditation, the Wim Hof breath, which is on YouTube. You can just Google Wim Hof breathing exercises. And that's one I go to all the time. If I have a headache, if I feel sick, if I'm just not feeling good, I'll just do like a 10-minute, 20-minute of rounds, like 3 to 5 rounds of the breathing exercises that he teaches on there. And if I have a headache, it's like relieved it as much as like 70 to 80% of the time. Even when I had, what I think was COVID back in March of when it began, I had daily migraine headaches, which I usually don't get migraines. And I was doing the Wim Hof twice a day, and it helped like 70, 80%.
Yeah. And it's really good for tapping into, like, when you want to, if you're working on a project and you're trying to get out like creative ideas, that for those of you that haven't done the Wim Hof breath, I highly recommend it. And what you want to do is when you're finished, you just lay there and relax for a few minutes if you have the time. And I'll tell you what, some of my greatest ideas have come in that moment, because you're in such a deep state of meditation. You're just like, oh, just the beautiful ideas are coming. And I'll even like sometimes keep a little piece of like a pad of paper on my stomach while I'm laying down, and I'll just grab the pen with my eyes closed and write it down. And when I look at it, it's all like jumbled all over the place, but I'm like, I get the gist,
I'm in. I'm gonna hammer a couple nails of commitment. I'm gonna finally start doing the breathing stuff. I've been wanting to do it. I've been talking about it. Hearing you both say this now, I know where it's at. I know where to find that stuff. I'm going. Sadhguru does some of that, and it jammed me up because it's so many breaths and it was so fast, and like I was like, wow, I got to keep doing this. And so I haven't really pursued the Wim Hof.
I like the Wim Hof because if you go onto YouTube, which we could even send them the link, there's shorter versions and longer versions. I have found equal amount of benefit from both. So yeah, I feel like I get just as much benefit off of doing it for 3 minutes versus doing like the longer.
Yeah, start with the shorter, and then because you have to hold your breath, and it can feel, if you do the longer ones, it can feel like you're like, because what you do is you're doing these breathing exercises for like 30 seconds or so. And then, or is it 60 seconds? I forgot, because he counts it down with you. And then you have to exhale all the air out of your lungs. So you've exhaled all the air out, and now you're holding your breath. And then he has you hold it for, I think, starting for, is it 30 seconds or 60 seconds? I think it's like 60 seconds or something. Yeah. And it works up to like 2 minutes or something like that, to where you're like holding it for 2 minutes with your breath.
If you do the longer version, you end up holding it for 3. And I was amazed. I held it for 3, and I'm like, it felt like a minute.
3 minutes?
Like 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Because you work up to it, and it's amazing.
It is like, it is addictive because it feels so good. So Damien, like, it feels like a meditation, and it feels like you're high. Like you get this high from it that I'm just like, oh, like I feel like just my body is melting. It feels great.
Very calm.
Man, I'm that's it. See, this is my major takeaway, is that I am going to be committed on that. So be prepared to get my feedback, Dan. I'll be hitting you up. Am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And I see, is it Dano, or did I say that right?
Dano, yeah.
Dono asked, so as of now, we don't have it in audiobooks, but I think would be good to get to that.
Where do you see that? I didn't even see that.
Right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I rewrite it, I'll put it into an audiobook for sure. But I mean, even better than that, man, even better than that is we actually have the YouTube channel, which we created tons of videos. Actually, our older podcast is on there too, from 2 years ago, that me and you did, which is just audio, but we also have it on YouTube with just like the image or something. So we have tons of content on there already. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we will put the books into audiobooks as well.
Yeah. It's funny. My brother was just mentioning that. So
I hate reading. I hate reading out loud. Like it bothers me. So I'll have to have you do it.
Yeah.
You both actually would be good reading the audiobooks. But I mean, Dan, when I hear you on the webinars, right? You and Ben both are really good, like radio. You have a radio books. You know that, right? You've been told that before.
No, I didn't know that. Thank you, though.
You
do. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, let you get back to the family. But before we let you go, I want to have everyone give you a big hug and a big Go Mobile sign off here. So all of you, you know what it's time for. Go ahead and take off your mute buttons. Give the big hug. Tell them what you feel.
Hey guys, thanks a lot.
Beautiful.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys.
You're so welcome.
Great sharing.
Had a few ahas.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you
It was
so much.
awesome.
And we're sending you hugs too.
Yeah, virtual hugs for everybody.
Yeah, this was really nice. I like this topic a lot. I mean, it's just something that we don't think about enough, and we really do. We all need it in our lives. All right.
You're welcome.
So, Siri Shakti, Dr. Dan, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your care and your wisdom. This has been an incredible session. So until the next time, thank you so much. All right,
So
everybody.
grateful.
All right, everybody, we're going to let you get back to your Fridays. Enjoy your weekend. Go have a good time. Go love on your loved ones. Go have some fun, and maybe share with your significant partner what you learned tonight if they weren't with you tonight, and have a good dinner conversation about it. Or maybe go walk tomorrow and have a little date walk and go talk about it. Go talk about the things that you were inspired about tonight and inspire them. Now that is some homework.
One last thing.
Yeah.
One last thing. Don't forget to be a rock star in your life. Make the world your stage.
Yeah. And go mobile or go home. Everybody.